to Overtime at 8, where we talk about relevant construction topics in the industry today. I've got Joey Summers with us today, our Vice President of Project Controls. Joey, thank you for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
So today, guys, we're talking about on-site schedulers and why they are a game changer. Now, this is something that in recent months and really recent in the last year or so, we started doing a lot more. We've always been scheduling experts, P6 experts specifically on federal projects, but then we started getting requests for on-site schedulers, and we've always had people go to site, but never somebody full-time on site until we did a project for Ford. And that's kind of where that all started. In recent months, we've had a lot more interest in the on-site scheduler piece of it. So we felt, hey, this would be a perfect opportunity for us to really dive into why on-site schedulers could be a game changer for your construction project. And who better than our guy that's in charge of all of it to be the one talking about it. So Joey, why don't you just give us an overview of why scheduling is so important in construction in general? Because I know depending on the company, schedules sometimes get put on the back burner for certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking at scheduling, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, it's a timeline, but it's much more than just a timeline for the project. It's really the essential management tool to run the entire project. It helps with subcontractor coordination. It helps holding people accountable. It helps with transparency to the owner so they know where the project really is. So really, it's kind of the lifeblood of the whole project if it's utilized correctly.
And then also it can, if you get yourself into a pinch or something's going on with the owner, it can be a real help if you're trying to get days back or REAs or anything like that as well. If you're scheduled done correctly and you're not keeping up with it correctly, it's going to be really hard to prove a lot of things in construction.
Exactly. If you've got to recover money from subcontractors or you need to recover money from the owner due to certain delays, if you don't have that tracked and recorded correctly in a schedule, you're really fighting a losing battle.
So specific to on-site schedulers, we've been talking to a lot of companies and we've been asked and we have provided on-site schedulers specifically for data centers, multi-billion-dollar projects. But why would an on-site scheduler be a game changer on any project?
Well, specifically, especially on larger, more complex projects, having an on-site scheduler is definitely a game changer because when we're working with a client to put together a schedule or update a schedule, we can only what we put into the schedule is only as good as the information we're getting from the job site. If we can have boots there on the job site, actually seeing the progress for ourselves and talking to the superintendents and seeing what's actually happening in the field, that just gives us a whole extra layer of control over the schedule and making sure that it's accurate.
That makes sense. So what types of projects specifically would require on-site versus off-site, and what would you recommend having on-site?
So for on-site, you're mostly looking at larger projects, very complex projects. Maybe there's multiple phases involved. Maybe there's multiple GCs involved. Any type of projects where you've got having to keep a building open or partially operational, thinking of healthcare renovations, anything like that really helps to have an on-site scheduler. Cases where you might not need an on-site scheduler as critically would be something that's a lot more of a standard project that's not a lot of phases, not a lot of complexity to it, maybe an apartment building where you're just a lot of repetition and it goes a lot quicker and easier.
I gotcha. Understood. And really, I think the key in all of this, and we and you were talking previously about owning the schedule and how a lot of times that's where companies have hiccups, is not necessarily that they don't have a schedule. They have one. They got to have one to get paid, but it's who actually owns that schedule. So what happens if no one owns that schedule?
Very good question. And that happens on a lot of projects. Like you mentioned, there might be a schedule in place somebody's put together and maybe somebody occasionally does updates to it. But if the person dealing with the schedule doesn't own holding people accountable that affect that schedule, they essentially don't own the schedule. And then it just becomes a document that people reference, but you're not really able to hold anybody accountable over that. So if you get into a situation like that, then no ownership, it's kind of the wild, wild west on the project. You've got subs kind of doing their own thing when they want to, and people getting upset that certain areas aren't ready for them when they're supposed to be. So it can just really turn into chaos quickly if you don't have somebody owning the schedule.
And I feel like too, a lot of the times, like if we come into a project and we're trying to fix a schedule or something like that, we see a lot that the people on the projects are kind of just lost they're there, they're doing, they're doing features of work, they're working on stuff, but they're kind of lost as far as the whole sequence of construction actually goes. And I'm just thinking from an on-site scheduler perspective, how much easier it would be if you had somebody on site, to your point about the getting information, where you've got, if you've got hundreds of subs per se on a project doing something, how lost you could get if you didn't have somebody on site that they actually could come to. You set up meetings specifically and things like that. So is that more along the lines of why these data centers per se are requiring on-site scheduling?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just due to the sheer size and complexity of it, the site conditions. I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, a schedule's just a piece of paper unless you've actually got boots on the ground confirming that everything that's happening on the paper is happening in real life. And so that's why it becomes very critical to have somebody on site.
Gotcha. Understood. For anybody that wants more information about on-site scheduling versus off-site scheduling, why on-site scheduling is a game changer, you can always go to our website, ace-consulting.net, go to the toolbox, go to articles. You just type in on-site scheduling. We've got a whole article specifically dedicated to why on-site scheduling is a game changer. And we know that on-site scheduling isn't for everybody. If you've got a cookie cutter project, or a project, let's say, that you've done 100 times over, you may not necessarily need somebody like that. But if a project is in trouble, or it's a project where you're going to have, it's real complex, you're going to have lots of subs out there, we think it's for sure always a better option. Get somebody on site so that there's one person that everybody can go to. They know that person owns the schedule. That way you're not getting lost, and that we can gather that information and ensure that schedule is up to date and that it's accurate. Obviously, go read the article if you haven't. If you need any help otherwise, or any questions, comments, concerns about what we've been talking about today, or scheduling in general, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help out if at all possible. You can call us. You can go to our website and submit a ticket. We get back to you as soon as possible on that. But as always, thank you guys for the time. Work with experts, work with ACE.